So we are on the back end dashboard. I can see we're coming up on 8 million. It's going to be a pretty good milestone for us. So we raised our first 1,070,000 was the first cap. We did that in 13 days. And then we went on, as you know, to become the first Reg CF on StartEngine and do the $5 million cap as soon as the cap was raised.
All right, awesome. So we are now live. Dr. Glover, great to see you again. Dr. Ahmad Glover, founder and CEO of WiGL, Wireless Touchless Power. What does WiGL exactly stand for? Wireless.
So it's wireless electrical grids of local area networks.
There we go.
That's way too much crap for somebody to say. So WiGL.
WiGL. Awesome. So Dr. Glover, this is the very first interview we're doing. The goal here, we've worked with you, Rallion Media, worked with you to produce your pitch video that's raising your Reg A on StartEngine. And the goal here is you are, an expert in crowdfunding. You had the first ever Reg CF to raise $5 million. And you are now, you are a veteran in this space. And so our goal is we work with a lot of founders, and a lot goes into a successful crowdfunding raise. And the outcome of that has a huge impact on the future of the business. Sometimes it decides the future of the business. And so we want to give founders resources to have a successful crowdfunding raise. And so that's why we're tapping you first. As I saw you, recently your LinkedIn says the king of crowdfunding. So who better to go to first? So I would love for you to just share who you are, what is WiGL, and a little bit about your background with crowdfunding.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you first, Alex, for having me and having WiGL. Glad to be a part of this. As you said, you guys did our video, and as we talked about earlier, you took us from good to great. So thanks for inviting us to be a part of this. So me, I retired United States Air Force guy. So I did 23 years in the military, and so WiGL was born really in my Air Force time. I ended up doing acquisitions, and in particular acquisitions for some special operations things. And so I'll talk, when I was in LA, we were working these satellite programs, and we had this real, magical classified stuff. That you had this thing called a data transfer device, and that DTD, that data transfer device, you put the crypto keys in it, and that's where you got all the magical tree. Well, if the battery died, that thing thought, I've been stolen by the bad guy, so do what they call zero, which is erase the key or dump everything. So it was in our better interest to never let that battery die. Impossible, right? That battery will always die. So then fast forward to, I go to Langley, which is where I retired out of, and we got even more special widget bangetry stuff, right? Same old raggedy DTD kind of devices, and the batteries keep dying. So I'm like, one day I'm going to solve this DTD thing. So one of the last assignments that I did in uniform was working with 5G ATD. So it was working on next generation waveform stuff. So after I retired, I got a contract to come back to, hey, come help with that stuff. Right? We're doing these new, even better whiz bangetry with the waveforms. And lo and behold, here's the whole MIT crew that I've been bugging to death about this battery thing. So I got a chance to pull one of the guys to the side before he retired, Sharif Jermaine, and I'm blowing him up, right? Sharif, you got to help me, guys. He's like, dude, go away. It won't work. So we finally got that figured out, got a first patent on it. We didn't even have a name, right? So we didn't have a name or business into that stuff. So I'm doing all this stuff under my other government contract. We stand up WiGL. WiGL becomes something. We get a contract to do WiGL before we even have a name or business. So we stand up. We start doing WiGL. February 26, 2020. So why is that important? That's the day the zombie apocalypse happened. Because February 26, 2020, the whole world went, stop touching each other, no looking in people's direction, handshaking will get you put in prison. And so we had to come up with a way to stand up this business that was not traditional, right? And so rather than be lucky than good, we stumbled upon the Jobs Act. We did some research. We stumbled upon StartEngine as one of the crowdfunding platforms. And, ominous dominus, Bob's your uncle. Here I go.
All right. So it happened right as the world was shutting down. You decided to do a crowdfunding campaign. How much have you raised so far?
So we are on the back end dashboard. I can see we're coming up on 8 million. It's going to be a pretty good milestone for us. So we raised our first 1,070,000 was the first cap. We did that in 13 days. And then we went on, as you know, to become the first Reg CF on StartEngine and do the $5 million cap as soon as the cap was raised. We took a little bit of an air gap to figure out what we were going to do next. Particularly leading to we've got an exit strategy, right? How do we stay aligned with our exit strategy? And so in the current Reg A plus, we're at a 2.5 plus. I know on the back end it's more, but I think it's advertised at like 2.5.
Okay, awesome. So why did you decide, I guess at that time, why did you decide going crowdfunding versus a more traditional route?
Oh, I've got a great story. So I don't want to. Every time I tell this story, I have to remember not to say his name. He'll probably say it's okay to say his name. So as a black founder, another group accelerator program that we went through said, "Hey, we've got an African investor," and so they put me in contact with him. He's a black billionaire. He says, "Hey, come to my house." So I was like, "Yeah, man, when? Tomorrow." So I get in my car, heart of COVID, right? No one can touch anybody. Get in my car. I drive a few hundred miles, a lot of 100 miles to his house. Go to his house. I'm sitting outside. He's got a dog jumping on me. The dog's all in the mud. I'm dressed out. I want to impress this guy. I bought papers and stuff, and winds blowing papers and stuff all over. And so he comes out. We go through the whole song and dance, and then before we leave, he goes, "Oh, you didn't think I was going to write you a check today, did you?" I was like, "Well, it's kind of the reason why I drove through the night to be here, right?" First thing in the morning to see what he was like. No, no, no. I just wanted to see you in person and meet you or whatever. Now let's start the due diligence, right? And so I'm thinking, dude, this is not it, right? I'm a retired military guy. I don't come from this world. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are comfortable in this stuff, going with people to the bowling alley and all. I just didn't, it was new and foreign to me. So I said, there's got to be a different way. And so when we stumbled upon crowdfunding, we said, okay, all full stop, right? No more shaking hands and kissing the rings. We are out of that business. It just didn't sit well with us. I wasn't comfortable. The questions seemed more like, how do I get around your patents and take your technology than, hey, how can I help you move forward?
So you launched, and I'm going to dive into some really just specific questions. But I mean, what went so well in that first raise?
So a couple things. So the first thing was before we raised, we started talking to people we knew, right? And inside of our inner bubble, hey, we've got this tech. Who cares about raising money? We've got this tech, and we think this tech solves this problem. And so then we were getting inputs from folks. Well, it also does this, right? And if you made it this, and if it had glitter in it, right? And you're getting all of this input around this stuff. And then we started responding to people's questions about this stuff, no matter how, right? It'll never work. Well, what if we did this? Well, still won't work. Well, what if we did that? Well, you're still in this, right? Tesla would turn over in his grave. Well, what about Edison, right? And so we made sure we were really engaging with everybody, regardless of where they were coming from, pre-launch. So when we launched, what we didn't realize is that there were a lot of people watching those conversations, right? And so when we launched, those folks were like, I'm in, right? And we to this day, we still remain very, but my team is always on me. If somebody asks us a question at 2 in the morning, if I get up at 2:15, I'm answering at 2:15, right? Because as an investor, I want that. Don't suckle, don't drive away from my question. Answer my questions. Give me directly what I ask you, and if you got some stuff to elaborate. So that has been highly successful for us. Is getting that message out, getting a message out, the pre-launch message, and then when we launch, staying engaged.
Okay, awesome. So this leads perfectly into my next question. What has been your top, I'd say, strategy and or tactic for raising from the crowd?
So the biggest thing is, and it pains me, right? So sometimes folks will say, "Hey, dude, you're killing me," right? You're putting out an update a day, right? Or sometimes I get 2 updates a day, and I got it. I agree, right? Sometimes this stuff goes into my inbox. I'm like, Jim and we're sending out another update. What has been really successful for us is to realize that there is no one person, right? Right, Alex, the way he receives information is different than the way Ahmad receives information, and so recognizing that Alex may want to know what is going on with the industry. I got it. I want to invest in you, or I have invested in you, but tell me about the entire industry. Whereas, Ahmad may want to know, I don't care about it. Tell me about your tech, just your tech. And then somebody else may say, well, listen, dude, I got it. I want to know, are you forward thinking? Are you thinking about what could happen instead of telling me what happened 10 years ago? And so being very responsive and messaging across a swath of audiences that are listening, as opposed to just, here's one cookie cutter message, everybody take from it what you want. We didn't do that in the beginning. We watched a lot of folks that we've seen do that. We tried to mentor folks to say, hey, hit all your audiences, right? Just like a movie, right? A movie will have 5 or 6 backstories, right? You didn't even recognize 2 of them because you didn't care, right? You were focused on this one story. So kind of doing it in that kind of thought process.
So is that in like the updates on StartEngine? Is that kind of like where you're talking about like, okay, so here's an update just about the wireless power industry, and here's an update about my background, and here's an update about a new hire we just made. It's like kind of hitting all these different areas through updates?
Everywhere. So so the same way that I talked about, hitting these different audiences, there's also different platforms to hit it. So this is why I said even I will get multiple updates. So sometimes the update will be to our StartEngine. Reason for StartEngine is we have almost 13,000 followers on StartEngine, right? On just this campaign, right? So our previous campaign, we got a bunch of followers as well. So 13,000 followers on this campaign, but we only have, I don't know, we maybe getting close to 1,800 investors. So that's a lot of people watching who are not investing, right? So it's targeting that audience. We also do MailChimp. So we'll usually follow up something we did on StartEngine with a MailChimp, right? Just so we don't kind of step on the message. And there's a whole compliance team as to what you can say, when you can say it, where you can say it, all that stuff. But then there's, right, and this is very, very, very important for anybody who's doing crowdfunding. When I first started, my daughter's 19 now. She was 17. She said, "Daddy, I'm very, very, very concerned about you and crowdfunding." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you need to know." This was probably the best advice I ever got from anybody, let alone a 17-year-old daughter. The internet is not a real place. She said, "You're not going to do well there. Military, direction. It's not a real place, right? People will hide behind the keyboard and all this stuff." So what we found is, okay, I've got a social media crowd. The social media is a big word. There's a LinkedIn crowd. They want one kind of thing. There's a Facebook crowd. They want a different kind of thing. There's a Facebook group crowd. They want a different kind of thing. There's an Instagram crowd, right? And so our messaging is not only targeted at specific audiences, it's targeted at specific audience on a specific platform as well. So we've been very, very diligent about, not upsetting apple cart. If you're in this space, you're in this world, we want to tell you about WiGL, where you are. We don't want to bring you to where we are.
Awesome. So many different places and kind of customized messaging based on the channel that you're communicating with them through.
Yes.
Smart. Awesome. What is the biggest mistake that you've made? If you had to go back and you say, I wouldn't do that again.
Oh boy. Okay. So, early on in our Reg CF, well, no, not early, near the middle of our Reg CF, I got suckered into an argument. So there was this debate about the state of the technology and how far a transmitter can go, what a transmitter can do. And I'm defending this stuff, right? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. And I'm going to manufacturers' websites, I'm copying the link. No, look, this guy makes this thing. And then I realized, wait a minute, stop. Right? This is Democrat versus Republican. Right? These are people who are fairly entrenched with, I'm going to kill anybody that says the other thing. I don't care if it's right or wrong, I'm just going to kill them. And these guys over here, like these guys, and here I am in the middle trying to arbitrate that. That's not my fight, right? Not my fight. Stay focused on my mission. I'm buying stuff from this guy. I'm pairing it with this guy. If you guys on the outside hate them, I hate them. That has nothing to do with me. And so that was one of the, and that back to my daughters, right? The internet's not a real place. Realizing that don't get pulled into those. There are influencers out there. God bless them. They make the hell. They helped us. We capped out our raise because of a lot of the, this message that we're doing. But, not to get pulled into somebody else's agenda. That was one of the biggest mistakes that we made because it took us about 3 or 4 months of debating this and back and forth with that and then realizing Every question you're asking has nothing to do with stuff we're doing. You're asking us about some other guy, and then you're pulling us into it. And cop, dude, not it. I yield. I yield. Not it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like any social media. It's like, okay, some people are going to ask a question and they're going to challenge you, but they're truly going to be curious about the answer. And those are the people who are actually probably on the fence about investing. And if you give them a piece of information, they may invest if you answer their question. And then there are other people who, like you said, are just, it's like a political thing where they've already decided and they're just there to debate, and no matter how many facts you share with them to prove your point, it's not going to get through. And that's just a sinkhole of time, attention, energy, frustration, that will drain you.
Yeah, and then you have to. At least I had to. I had to look. There's a. I forget who says it, but there's a saying: "Would never debate with the person who buys their ink by the barrel." And so, right in our time, that's an influencer, right? So you get influencers who sometimes they'll tell you, "Hey, I'm just going to do it because of the money, right? The more views I get, the more money I'm going to get." And you get pulled into this agenda kind of thing, which, hey, if I can help those folks, I will. But I don't want to do it at the detriment of our focus and where we're going, right? We'd rather
Right.
just, it'll never work, right? And then we're showing you, hey, I wish you wouldn't have said that because we just did work yesterday. We just worked.
And I have to, right? It's like to the detriment of like your focus, your attention. I mean, how much work do you put into a crowdfunding campaign? When you launch a campaign, I mean, how much time are you spending on that campaign itself?
So I'm gonna say his name, the billionaire. One of the great pieces of advice he gave me was, I was about to leave, and he said, "Just so you know, when you're now this wasn't around crowdfunding. This was around venture capital." He said, "Just so you know, this is now a full-time job, right? Raising capital is not something you do on the side. It is now what you do full time, right?" So I mentioned if somebody gives a response at 2 in the morning, I'm doing that at 2 in the morning, and but there's still other stuff, right? I mean, I've got multiple screens open. I have a whole screen open right now responding to something the government wants on our technology, right? So I've got to do that stuff too. And so you, as a founder, in my humble opinion, should be the focal point for answering your investors. I've seen folks farm that out. I invest as well. I want to talk to the founder. I want to talk to the person with the passion behind the thing. So as a founder, I would say you're going to give 40 hours a week to your crowdfunding, 40 hours plus. Now, right, you're also going to give 40 hours a week to operations. You're going to give 40 hours a week to human resources, right? So very soon you're going to run out of 40 hours.
Yeah, full-time job. I mean, that's serious. That's real. And I feel like most people, a lot of people, and partially this is the way like some of it's marketed, is like I launch and then the money just starts coming in, right? Like that's an expectation that a lot of people have. Doesn't seem to work out that way most of the time. It has in a few cases, but I would say in most of the time that's not really how it works.
Yes, not how it works at all. Not how I've seen it work. I mean, you're actively engaged, and I mean, and that's the other thing, right? Like you said, somebody actually gave me the title King of Online Crowdfunding, so that's why I put that tagline. I was like, that's pretty
I
cool.
love it. Yeah.
But I will tell you, I got no, I've reached out to Don Dixon, and Don, I got to pick your brain, right? Because
Popcom.
there's so much stuff that you cannot possibly know. Crowdfunding is too new for any one person, to include Howard, right? You're just not going to know all of the stuffs in it, and that's going to take some time as well. As there's a if you're doing 40 hours a week of working on your campaign, you're doing another 10 hours a week of getting educated on what the hell it is you're doing.
Yeah, great point. I think I'm gonna go to my last question here, and unless I'll leave you a minute after. But I mean, if there's just one piece of advice you could give a founder who's thinking of doing a crowdfunding campaign or has signed up, they're about to launch a campaign, getting ready, what would that be?
Grow really thick skin. That's probably the most important advice I give you, because you're gonna, like us, we had stuff. We had a wiggle day. We said, "Oh, we're gonna do wiggle day." We got 12,000 followers on this, hundreds of thousands and probably millions of followers across our social media platforms, right? We're going to do WiGL Day and it's going to go dear, right? So grow thick skin, because some of the things that you think are going to work, they won't work. We had our saltwater generator. Our saltwater generator was some special operators kind of called me to task. They said, hey, you got this nifty thing. You keep talking about you're going to plug it into the wall. Dude, I don't have a wall. I'm living on the side of a mountain somewhere. What are you talking about? Plug it into a wall. So we came up with this ability to create our own power, right? But it was a secondary thing. It was just, hey, now you got somewhere to plug this thing. Well, that became the thing, right? We went to San Antonio not that long ago, and they're like, oh my goodness, tell me about the magical Wonder Box thingy. What, that? You guys are talking about that thing? So, grow thick skin and know that, sometimes what you think is the thing won't be the thing. It'll be the thing you didn't think was the thing becomes the thing, and make those pivots and adjustments that's needed.
I hear, there's so many different ways that you can raise money. And, I asked you, like, what's your top tactic? I'm sure you've tried 50 others. And there's so many things that you can do, and some things that work for one company won't work with another. And I think that's a great point. It's like, if you have that thick skin and tenacity, obviously, I'm helping companies raise money, but I'm not in the thick of it running all these tactics and having to deal with that rejection on a day-to-day basis. So I'm here to help and support that. But there are so many ways that you can do it. And just because something didn't work doesn't mean people don't want to invest, doesn't mean that it's going to be a failed campaign, because there might be another technique that, is just around the corner for you to try. That is the thing that hits. And maybe only 10 people check it out, but that one of those 10 people is going to invest $500,000. That does happen, where it's like, you don't need a ton of people sometimes. You just need the right people.
You need the right people. Yeah.
Anything else, Dr. Glover, that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
So here's my last thing, and I'll leave it as a kind of a joke, right? So I don't know if I can say what this agency is. So I'll just say one of the 3-letter agencies I worked for years ago, we used to have a joke where we said, how could you tell the difference between the introverts and the extroverts, right? And we said, well, the introverts are all the folks walking around looking at their shoes. The extroverts were the people walking around looking at other people's shoes. And so I tell you that because in this social space, crowdfunding online space, a person may ask you a question. They may be introvert, extrovert. You don't know, right? They ask you a question. Just know that the people reading your response are probably going to be considerably more than just that person that asked you that question. So take emotion out of it, take highly technical out of it, and know you're answering potentially thousands, millions of people are reading your answer to a question. That has been a lesson I've had to learn. It takes me a while to write and re-edit and all these things, knowing that, you ask me, something like, do we plan to do another capital raise, right? And I know that there are thousands of people sitting on the edge of their chair going, what is the answer going to be? So I've got to answer to all of those people. So that's my parting way to everybody.
Really thoughtful. Dr. Glover, you are a thoughtful man. You're a hustler, as we were saying before this. You've got a lot going on. I think there's a reason that WiGL has been so successful in the crowdfunding space and overall thus far. I'm really excited to see what you do, whether you continue to raise through crowdfunding, go different directions. But we're part of the journey now too. So we're really rooting for you and here to support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.